Hello, it's me. I wanted to show you how to do something. I'm going to show you how to make beer batter onion rings. It's not difficult. The problem that a lot of people have making beer batter onion rings is keeping the batter on the onion rings. But I'm going to show you a little trick here that I learned many years ago when I worked in a supper club situation where one of their most popular items was beer batter onion rings. So this is what I have. This is actually just one onion that I've cut up. I put it into rings and divided it like that. You can see about how big they are. I find that size works great. What I have here is 1 cup of all-purpose flour. I've got about a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. You can leave that out if you want. It's not all that important. And I've got about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I have a bottle of beer. That's 12 ounces of beer. You can use any beer you want. It really doesn't even matter. If you use a darker beer, your onion rings will look dark, that's all. And you may or may not want that. You can also use near beer because the flavor that you're going for, you can use a non-alcoholic beer, you're going for that beer yeasty flavor. That's all it is. What I have here is about a 1/2 cup of cornstarch. Now, this is the secret to making your batter stay on your onion rings. Okay? What I'm going to do, I'm going to just pour this. In a restaurant situation, we had dredging stations. Okay? Everything is done in stations. And so I had the onion rings, the cornstarch dredge, and the batter. And I would dredge the onion rings in the cornstarch and put them in the batter and put them in the deep fryer. What I have here, I don't have deep fryer. I don't need that. I've just got some oil, about 1 inch or so, in a skillet. And I'm going to bring that to heat. And then, another secret to keeping them nice and crispy, put them on a rack, not just on paper towel. That way they don't steam mushy. They stay crispy, okay? If you're going to make a bunch of them, you can put them in a preheated oven and about 300 degrees and put them on a rack in the oven and they will stay crispy that way too, okay? If you're going to make a bunch and you don't want to serve them all at once, okay? So what I'm going to do is I have poured my cornstarch here over the onion rings for convenience. I'm going to toss the onion rings in that. I'm going to make up my beer batter and then I will be back. All right, I'm back. Now, as you can see, I've tossed the onion rings in the cornstarch. It's just cornstarch. There's nothing else in there. There is no seasoning, no salt, no anything. The beer batter, it only has what I told you, salt, and it's got a little bit of baking powder in it. That's it. Now, I want you to look at how thin that is. See how thin that is? You don't want a thick batter. Some people think that you've got to have this thick batter, and that's how you do it, but no. That's the way you want it to look. That's why there's only 1 cup of flour and a bottle of beer, 12 ounces of beer, okay? Now, I'm going to let this set for a few minutes so that it can settle down a little bit. You can see that it's foamy. And you can use flat beer. You don't have to use foamy beer. I like the foamy, the fizz, but you can do whatever you want. If you want to add other spice to this, garlic or whatever, go ahead, but frankly, I'm a purist when it comes to this. I don't recommend it. I want the good flavor of the onions to come through, that yeasty taste of the beer batter, and salt, and that's it. Okay? All right, so I'm going to let this sit for a couple of minutes while the oil comes up to heat, and then I will show you how to do this. Okay? One thing for sure, just so that you know, when I worked in the kitchen, the situation for a supper club, the beer batter was a secret. Only the owner made the beer batter. No one else made it. So I was never privy to that. So years later, I wanted to make them myself. So I just pretty much figured out how to make it. Okay? Whether I'm doing it like he did, and his were really, really good, the best probably I've ever had, although mine come pretty close. Whether or not I'm doing it the same, I have no idea. But this is what works for me. Okay? All right, we'll be back. Okay. Now, I can't remember if I told you how much flour. I don't remember if I told you a cup or cup and a quarter. This is actually a cup and a quarter of flour in here, okay? So, I did a test one to see how, make sure that my oil was good. There's the test one, okay? All right, now, I have one fork for dipping, and I have one fork for pulling it out of the oil. Sometimes your fork can get a little bit gloppy, so I'm just going to lay a few in here. You know, you don't have to be delicate about it. And I'm simply going to toss them in the batter. The cornstarch is what's going to help keep the batter on when they're cooking, okay? So let them drip, let the excess drip off, put it into the oil, and just keep going. Work along quickly. It's not rocket science, okay? Put these in there. Got another one here. Put that in. There we go. Now, don't crowd your pan. That's a pretty important thing. Now then, I want you to, whoa, steam it up. Okay, I want you to see, you haven't lost very much of that batter. It's just little blops there. And these cook pretty quickly. So you can see the edges starting to get golden. If you want to flip them a couple different times, go ahead. But if you crowd your pan, they'll stick together. If you have a deep fryer and you want to use a deep fryer, use a deep fryer, okay? Fine. It's up to you. I'm going to flip these and take a look at them. And like I said, you can flip them a couple of times. It's simple, it's easy, but I want you to see how the batter is adhering to the onion rings. That's what you're looking for. So you have a bottle of beer, you have a cup and a quarter of flour, you've got a pinch of baking powder and a pinch of salt, and you've got your onions, which are dredged in cornstarch. That's the key, is the cornstarch, okay? You don't have to make a big, thick old batter to get them to get it to adhere. What the cornstarch does, it helps dry out your onion a little bit. It absorbs that moisture, which enables your batter to adhere. Okay? All right. So we're going to take this one out. We're going to put it on our rack. This one's ready to come out too. And like I said, if you've got a deep fryer and you want to use it, go ahead. No problem. And once these come out, see, you can see that the oil is dripping on the paper towel and the rack is on the tray. If you don't have a rack, try to get one sometime. I bought some at a flea market and I've had these for a very, very long time. So they're very handy, not just for this, for frying things, but for baking. I use mine all the time. Okay? All right, now I'm going to just pull salt on there. And I want you to see, I'm going to turn this off real quick. I want you to see how nice and crunchy they are. See? How crunchy, how good they are. And I'm telling you, that's all there is to it. I would take a bite of one of these, but I do not want to burn my tongue off. So, listen, by all means, give it a try. The cornstarch is the secret to beer batter onion rings, or to batter onion rings in general. Maybe you have a batter recipe that does not include beer. Great. But this is how the batter adheres to the onion rings. See how good that looks? And another thing, because there's not that much flour in it, it's a very light, crunchy batter. Okay? All right. I hope you give this a try. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And I've been making my own onion rings for years. You do not need to go out to a restaurant to have some good, deep beer batter onion rings. You can make them yourself. Okay? All right. Give it a try. I hope you do. I love you, and I'll talk to you later. And you just remember that little is much when God is in it. Bye.